Hi, so I'm Miles Carroll. I'm a Professor of Emerging High Consequence Viruses at Oxford University, and I've recently joined the Pandemic Sciences Institute that Oxford have established in response to the COVID pandemic. So I work primarily on viruses that are emerging, that is that they're not endemic necessarily or around the world, or they're usually restricted to unique countries, usually in Africa. So big focus on Ebola, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever virus, and more recently on SARS-CoV-2. Okay, so I suppose what we think of new threats have probably been around for many, many hundreds of years, but we're just seeing them. But there are generally new threats, new viruses that have emerged in recent years. So a lot of the investment in emerging threats actually has been from the biodefense sector, US government, in response to 9/11, the potential threat to US populations from bioterrorists. So that now has more shifted to sort of natural biothreats, because Mother Nature is the best bioterrorist you could possibly imagine. What nature can develop is, in my opinion, currently is more significant and severe than what we can, scientists can make up. So fortuitously, in response to Project BioShield and defense against potential smallpox attack, the US government licensed a really safe vaccine for smallpox that fortuitously is really effective against monkeypox. So there's a stockpile of a licensed vaccine already there, and also antivirals as well. But let's look at, say, Sudan Ebola virus, where there are no stockpiles of any licensed vaccines, but there are early stage vaccines that could be directed to that pathogen. So I think you've got to keep both looking behind you as well as looking forward. Okay, so the history of vaccine development, go back to Jenner, was really rapid. And so the incidence of correlating pox infections on a hand from cowpox and a clear compaction of the skin of a milkmaid to jump quickly to actually take that virus from a hand and use it to vaccinate, and then subsequently challenge using variolation of smallpox. And that was pretty quick. I mean, it took some time for people to make the connection, but this correlate was obviously turned out to be true. So it was a really quick vaccine development. But what it showed is that subsequently there were complications caused by using unpurified and quantified vaccines. So I think what we've learned is that we have to be really safe and cover all bases in vaccine development. And so safety is obviously the top priority. So I think the vaccine community has definitely learned that. There have been issues in the past of processes that were not maybe as good as they should have been, and caused some disease outbreaks when you were vaccinating individuals. So I think it's taught us that safety is paramount. In the past, it's taken decades to develop vaccines that maybe we didn't need to take decades developing. And SARS-CoV-2 taught us that we could develop and license a vaccine from concept to licensed product in under a year. So why can't we do that for other public health infections, diseases that are still killing or are causing severe complications, especially in young children? So I believe that vaccine licensure process will be accelerated in the future on the back of the learning from the COVID pandemic vaccine development. Developing vaccines has always been, it's cost, and it depends on the availability of effective animal models, depends on the concentration of disease in the population, depending on how many people you need to vaccinate to see efficacy. So it is cost, and I think that human challenge studies have an opportunity to reduce the costs and massively reduce the timelines for development. So it's the timelines that are so severe that most companies will fail before they actually bring a product to license. That's why it's only big pharma that usually brings those vaccines to licensure. Well, the WHO led the international community in developing something called the R&D roadmap for priority pathogens. The first thing is you have to decide what are the priority pathogens. And this really was the result of the 2013-2016 Ebola epidemic in West Africa, that they realized that there was a big gap in that emerging disease vaccine development, also for therapeutic and diagnostics. So the international community comes together on an annual basis, led by WHO, we look at all the epi data and the new virus threats that are out there, and we look at maybe the top 8 to top 10 viruses that could be the next epidemic. And actually in 2018, we did get it right, because at that meeting in Geneva, it was agreed that the most likely culprit for the cause of the next epidemic would be a pathogenic respiratory coronavirus, which obviously SARS-CoV-2 is. And what the list always includes is disease X. It's something that we don't know about yet, but we know it's going to be related likely to other threats that have already emerged. So if you do develop a vaccine, say to MERS, it will help you in developing a vaccine to SARS-CoV-2, as it did. And the shift now has been away from developing vaccines to just one specific virus, but can we use innovative approaches to develop vaccines against a genus of families? So if we had a vaccine to MERS or SARS-1 that was broad enough to all beta coronaviruses, then it probably would have been effective against SARS-CoV-2. If we make something specific for SARS-CoV-2, it might not be effective for SARS-CoV-3 when it comes. So these pan-genus vaccine approaches, and CEPI has invested in that, and I know it's part of the US government's pandemic preparedness approach, and that's the way I think WHO will go as well in their next pathogen prioritization for 2022. I'm particularly interested in looking at preclinical immunity of vaccines and how you can develop products of protection to aid in the development process and licensure of the vaccines as well. I've been coming to these conferences for the last 10 years, working with the organising committee and especially Wing. I've always come away with new collaborations, new thoughts, new ideas. So it's a great way to get people together. Unfortunately, COVID prevented people to get together. We did things online, but face-to-face is so essential for those, off seminar, coffee chats, etc., etc. So great benefit, especially for the collaborative opportunities.